I get to work with incredibly talented individuals and I get to learn from them. And I didn't have that opportunity to learn growing up and talk to other filmmakers. And I think every day being able to get up and work with filmmakers and meet them, whether I've known them for my whole time here or whether I'm meeting them for the first time, it's always my goal is to continue learning. And it's also I love being able to bring someone's vision to life through what I can do through logistics. And even if that's just like an Excel spreadsheet,
but it's a gorgeous Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, damn right it is. But like, if that, they have such an awesome dream, and if they have that passion behind it, that's contagious.
My name is Wes Gibbons, and welcome back to the Tungsten Originals podcast. You just heard part of my conversation with producer Raegan Levan. We discussed her philosophies on the role of producer, how she manages a wide array of content, and what she hopes to achieve as the first official producer at Tungsten. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy. Episode 75 of the Tungsten Originals podcast. Raegan, welcome to the podcast. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. This is an exciting time to have you on. You are you're the only episode that I recorded and never aired, which is a great way.
So fingers crossed for this one.
Right. This is a great way to start off this podcast. Basically, I interviewed you like 2 weeks before COVID happened.
Yep.
And we were in Pink was about to happen, or Pink had just happened or something. Pink was a short that I helped out on. Blueberries was right around the corner, and school was getting crazy, and then COVID happened, and I just never got around to releasing it, and it's all your fault.
That's fair.
So
I'll take that.
So just don't do that again.
Oh, my bad. Be really careful with this episode. Who knows what will trigger for the next year?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, this is exciting. You are a producer at Tungsten. You are the producer of Blueberries and also the maker of many other great things. We've become close friends, so I'm glad I'm interviewing this time because I feel like a lot of exciting things have happened since, obviously, the great unaired episode. And we're together. This is being properly filmed by our lovely DP Joe, who's just off camera.
Hi,
Thank
Joe.
you, Joe. And we're in my hometown, to prep for Blueberries. And this is the first time we've been together since you became an official member at Tungsten. So
and I think since COVID.
Right. Oh yeah, true.
So this is the first time we're seeing each other in
over
a year.
That's
crazy.
So let's not see each other again for a year.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think.
I think that'd be healthy.
Keep that repetition going. But yeah, I mean, I have learned a lot about you over these projects, over all of our Tungsten conversations, but I want to dive into how you became a filmmaker, because you're such a talented producer and work on some really great stuff.
Oh, shucks.
That is really out of my realm. So, I've heard a little bit, but I want to dive in. How did you become a filmmaker in Kissimmee, Florida?
Yeah, I think if there's one thing people should know about me in my personal life, it's that I am a very indecisive person to the max. Never go to get food with me ever, because we will spend an hour and a half trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But the one thing
That's perfect for whenever we go to dinner in 30 minutes after that.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
That's why Joe's picking.
Okay, great.
But if there's one thing I have been decisive about in my life, it's that since the age of 9, I've wanted to be a filmmaker. And that is the one thing that I've
you've known,
and I didn't always act on it per se.
Right.
I majored, I got my degree, and I did some time, thought I was going to be a horticulturist.
You did an associate's degree, yeah.
I did in high school.
Where? I forget the name.
Valencia College in Orlando, which was a community college at the time. But
okay,
I strayed and thought about that I'd do other things, and kind of the reason for that is, started filmmaking at the age of 9, and I would make short films on the weekends with, my friends in the neighborhood, and none of them were interested in film, but we all hung out, you know what I mean? And it's a small town. What else are we going to do? So we'd run around in the woods, and I'd write scripts and they'd act in it and I'd film it and edit it. And then we'd have premieres in the backyard and everyone would clap and it would be, all that.
I mean, that's the cycle. That's it.
And that was so like addicting at that age to just do that. And it still is, but and we'd do that and we'd have my pet duck, Puddle Duck in it. And
shout out to
Puddle Duck. And that's how I got into it. And but there weren't a lot of resources, at school or, I had a film production class in high school
I've interviewed a lot of people and so many people say that they started in like their AV class. And I'm like, where was my class? I never had
Mine only
those.
Lasted a year before funding, shut it down. And it was, the arts as much as, Orlando and Kissimmee, they're huge on arts, which is awesome. But just at the time, it was something they couldn't fund. So I didn't have that creative outlet. I had a couple of friends in high school, shout out to the guys with ties, who, we'd do, make little videos for their church and things like that, or just on the side. But there was no real, I didn't think that was a career I could actually go into.
Right.
Because there just wasn't anyone I knew that was doing it on a bigger level.
So whenever you did your associate's degree, so you're doing that degree, that's a 2-year degree, I assume?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're doing that, are you just in your head like, oh, well, I mean, I'll just continue to make stuff on my own? Why did you go to SCAD for film school and like make that pivot of like, okay, it can be a career? Because I asked that question to like everybody, and that's the domino effect, the deciding factor to go from, we all start off, this is fun.
Right.
It's a really fun thing to do with your friends. And then it's like, okay, I'm going to commit my life to this.
Right.
That's a big decision.
Yeah. And I'm a planner. I've been stressed out about my career since 5th grade and what I'm going to be when I grow up.
Nice.
So I started my associates in high school, and then I extended my time doing that a little bit because, it's theoretically a 2-year degree. And I was still like, I don't know what I want to do or if I want to commit to film and actually make that jump because, I grew up in Central Florida. So my options were, okay, I could maybe go down south and go to Miami, or I could, try to apply for FSU or, whatever. And I just didn't know where to start. And that was the most frustrating part because I didn't have people that I could consult about these things. Mm-hmm. And if I went, people would be like, oh, you're making little movies, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So I had a college night at, I think my final semester or something around that
Valencia.
time. Yeah, I think,
or
close to the end
school,
at Valencia.
Yeah.
After I graduated high school. And so I was like, oh, I guess I should get serious about figuring out what I want to do with my life. And so I went to college night, and there weren't a lot of schools that were, there for film.
Right.
And so I finally was just giving up, and I was going to leave for the night. And I ran into this woman who was so sweet, and she gave me this thick book.
SCAD book?
She gave me the 2015, 2016, whatever, SCAD catalog.
Yep.
And I took it to be polite.
I can imagine the cover of that book.
It was
like, I probably have 3 copies of those.
It's huge. I think I still have it at home. But I went home that night and I threw it down because I was like, this is huge. This is overwhelming. I'm going to take a nap. And then a few weeks later, I was cleaning out my room and I tripped over this book. And I finally was like, oh, I'm going to look through this. And that's how I was introduced to SCAD. And I, looking at other film schools and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I personally felt that I would get the most opportunity for me in film and have the best chance to get into a degree and not, just get a cinema studies or work at my local news station, which are still awesome options. It just wasn't for me, and I wanted to get out of my hometown and have big dreams of going to Hollywood or, whatever.
Right.
So that's why I went.
In Hollywood.
Here we are right now.
Yeah. Welcome to Hollywood.
So that was just my personal path, kind of making my way to SCAD. And then now I'm at my final quarter, and it flew by like nothing.
Again, we just recorded the episode of myself, Raegan, and Joe talking about tungsten and everything. If you haven't listened to that episode, you should check it out. But as we said, you graduate in 2 weeks, like 2 weeks from Friday, and it's Tuesday.
I had that realization because it's my final quarter at SCAD has just been, every quarter at SCAD has just been go, go, go. But especially this last quarter, there's been a lot more than usual, which for those people that know me are probably like, shocker.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's been a lot, and I'm currently, a part-time student. I'm working on a feature in town in the production office.
Is that your first feature gig?
Yeah, which is exciting.
That's huge.
No, it's very cool.
That's incredible.
So doing that, and then doing, of course, other projects, school projects and personal projects on top of that. So it's flown by, and it finally just occurred like yesterday.
Right.
I think you had mentioned.
I think it was when you were doing storyboarding homework last night.
I was doing storyboarding homework, and you were
I
like,
just looked at the calendar and I was like, oh.
You're not going to have to worry about this soon. And I think that was that, oh my God, situation of like, it's over. Like
you blinked
nothing.
And now here you are.
I blinked and now it's over.
Yeah.
And I just turned 24, so it's been like...
Sure did. A lot of big life things.
A lot of reflection this week.
Yeah. Coming to Mississippi does that to people, I feel like.
Yeah.
The audience. This is our first episode with the studio audience. The studio audience of Joe agrees. Yeah. Let's go.
Thanks, Joe.
This is why you should check out the video version, folks. Well, yeah, I mean, it has been... I feel like you're part of so many projects. I'm like still learning about the stuff that you're on, just because we met at Reconnection, right? Well, I mean, we met at your kitchen that one time.
We met through mutual friends, but I think
that was the first time we started talking to people.
Right.
Yeah. So there's this. It premieres tomorrow. Reconnection.
Also
I'll
wild.
put a link to that in the description. Shout out to Seth Cunningham.
Yeah, congrats, Seth.
Yeah, the creator of that. It was a web series, proof of concept kind of web series, and we both acted in it in episode 2. And I was like a minor character, and you were playing a monster.
As always,
because it was a horror short. And we talked a lot about it. Talked a lot then, and got to really know each other. But I have always been so impressed with like how much stuff you're working on. You know what I mean?
Gosh.
Because it is it's traditional, quote unquote traditional dramas like Blueberries, and then there's animation stuff, and then like just it covers a wide gamut, documentaries and all that kind of things. So whenever you came to SCAD, were you like, okay, I want to be a producer? Because I had a similar making things with my small town friends, and I feel like most people, when that's their story, they go the director route, because like you have to produce it because no one else knows what they're doing, and so you have to be the person to wear all the hats. But then, at least for me, I guess I'm speaking for myself, I get to SCAD and I'm like, cool, I only want to direct. I don't want to worry about as much as of the logistics side. So like, what interested you about going specifically the producer track? Because that is it's just very different, obviously, from being a writer and director.
Right. So when I came here, especially growing up, I always thought I'd be an editor. And when I came to SCAD, that was my original track. I was like, I'm here to edit. But I also was torn because I've always been, as my mom says, a pretty ambitious child. And there's just too many things that I'm like passionate about that I was like, how do I get to work in all of these things as an editor?
Yeah.
And that was something I was dealing with my first quarter. And then during my first quarter, someone in my Film 100 class needed a producer for their class project. And no one else volunteered. And I didn't know why. And I was like...
You quickly learned why.
Yeah, I was like, producing? Come on, get out of here. I can produce. And I did. And it went horrible. Like, absolutely. I think people that were on that shoot that I didn't even realize until like this last year and a half that were on the shoot. One of my best friends and now my roommate, Talissa, was on that shoot. And
really?
It did not click.
Wow.
That's
funny.
And it went bad. It was so bad. But it's awesome because I can laugh at that, and from there, word got out that I produced things.
Right.
And not a lot of people in my class that had entered, and I was a transfer, so it was funky, were producing. So my good friend Satyan, hi Satyan, we didn't really know each other at the time, but his roommate is the one that I had produced the thing for. Okay. And so Satyan knew a lot of people and was a well-established producer. It's like, oh, you're a producer? Perfect.
Awesome.
And just start connecting me with projects.
Right.
And that from there, I just kept getting producing gigs, but it also really introduced me to like, I've always loved logistics and spreadsheets and, you know, organizing and being a part, even though sometimes I didn't feel as creative as other people. I still love being creative and I can contribute to projects creatively through those logistics. So it's a beautiful blend that works really well for me. And it's something that, like, if I didn't love it, I wouldn't be up.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't be in Mississippi,
I wouldn't not sleep.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Might be healthier for you if you did not want to be a producer. So you do your film 100 thing, and then, like, is there a project at SCAD that is kind of like a tentpole project for you? Because directing episode 3 Reconnection for me was a big deal. Biggest set I'd ever directed. It was like 30 people on set or something. Like, that was the biggest project I directed. Obviously 38 is like a big tentpole because that was taking SCAD people to Mississippi.
Right.
And the first time directing something in Mississippi with a proper crew. But what are kind of those standout projects for you, again, because you've worked on so many things?
Yeah. So I think there's 2 answers to that. And the first one being, my gut punch reaction is to say this animated VR production I did, I was brought on to my second quarter here. So I was a sophomore because I'm a transfer and things were wonky.
Right.
And it was, this huge animated VR project that Satyan had brought me on. And I didn't know anything about VR, didn't know anything about the logistics of animation. And suddenly there's, I think, 100-something people.
Right.
That it's like, cool, here you go.
Yeah.
And communicate and do all
this.
this.
And it's not like you're like a producer.
Right, exactly.
Who you're up there. You're
had
the
only
boss
produced
now.
this really, this short film the quarter before, and I fed everyone pizza, which is, like, I guess a cardinal sin. But
well, everyone, all go through it. Yeah. It's a rite of passage, I think, is
so going from, like, barely pulling it together on this set to suddenly, well, here's this huge project.
Yeah.
And I think that was the project that really taught me, like, I can do it if I put my mind to it.
Right.
And that really forced me to grow up and learn and do a lot of things. And I was on that project. I mean, it was
years, right? Like, it lasted for a long time.
Right. As of last month, I think it finally,
really?
Reached its end.
Wow.
Which is heartbreaking to watch a project that you've been on so long just, come to an end. But I think also, like, it was one of my favorite experiences here and really shaped me as a producer.
Yeah.
Going into the rest of my time at SCAD.
Yeah.
And I guess the second answer to that is that going into every project, I don't know if it's easy to say that there's one project because I've been on so many, but also going into each project, I like to keep the idea of, like, this is the most important project I've ever worked on. Because then if you're going into it with that mindset, it isn't just a job.
Yeah.
It's just, okay, we'll get through this one and then we'll go on to the next one. It's, you want to put your all kind of into each project you go into. So handling each project as if this is my big one.
Right.
With everything that you do really kind of keeps you from, like,
picking
getting
favorites
in
and stuff like
getting
that.
In that lull or, like, oh, I'm just on this to build my portfolio. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. But in the same breath, can you speak to juggling all that kind of stuff? Because it's you're in school, trying to get a degree.
Right.
And of course, a lot of these projects are to get the degree, like there's class projects or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know a couple weeks ago you went down to Miami for a documentary.
Yeah.
We've been working on Blueberries for over a year.
Right.
You have, like, this animated project and all this kind of stuff. So, like, what are some, like, tangible things you do to keep that organized? Because that's just a lot. And I know Google Drive is an answer to.
Oh my gosh,
Google Drive is
such a blessing.
Yeah, it's the backbone of the indie film industry. But
it's not a perfect system, and sometimes I goof, and you got to admit to those. Like, oh, my bad, wrote that meeting down for the wrong day. You know what I mean? It happens. But I think for me, I like to, before I start a project, I like to sit down with the director and whoever and talk about their needs. We set up goals, deadlines. I like to have weekly meetings to make sure that I'm on top of the things that I need to do.
Because it's also changing all the time.
Right.
Like, new
Oh my
updates
gosh,
happen
yeah.
at midnight and
Especially with needs and deadlines
Yeah.
and, whatever. So making sure that I have a lot of, my Google Calendar is stacked. It's terrifying,
Yeah, it
but
is.
it's color coded. So it's, definitely interesting to look at. But for me personally, it's list, weekly meetings to make sure just to check in,
Yeah.
see some faces, even if it's a quick phone call.
Right.
Just what do we need to do? Just those little things. But especially with a lot of projects, something that I've had to force myself to do, and that's been hard for me, especially in the past, is really balancing how many projects I take on, even if that means sometimes saying no to projects that even though you really want to do, sometimes you just don't have the time for.
Yeah. I'm glad you bring up saying no, because you have to learn that the hard way. I feel like I don't remember that being said in class. Like, you shouldn't take that project, because it's film school. You need to, or you should make as much stuff as possible. You want to meet as many people as you can. So naturally, you're going to say yes to everything.
Right.
Especially like when you're trying to become a producer, like you have to kind of prove yourself a little bit so that other directors and DPs and all that kind of stuff want to work with you as a producer. They have to know that you're not going to destroy the project. Because as a producer, you can't. I mean, anyone can.
Oh, 100%.
But, you just have a lot of control. So now that you have been working for 4 years on a billion projects, it seems, at the same time, how do you know when to turn something down?
Right. That always that's not been easy for me.
Yeah.
For sure. Especially getting here and being thrown into, oh, well, you're a producer, and being thrown into projects, because at first it was, like you said, I need to prove myself. I need to build my portfolio for people to take me seriously. I've got nothing under my belt and I want to learn more. And so, I was on a lot of projects, some great, some that didn't end up so great, and learned a lot of lessons, learned a lot from a lot of other producers, which was awesome. And then also learned a lot of hard lessons. And it teaches you, finding your people. Who do you want to work with? Who do I not want to work with? Who, a lot about logistics and moving forward. Like, okay, maybe this didn't work on this film, but here's what I'll do better the next time. And it's always, every project, it's bringing something new to the table. Like, you don't want to get too settled in where you are and like what you do. It's always striving to do better and to learn more. Yeah. But at the same time, you don't want to overload yourself, which someone's going to text me and be like,
like, look who's talking.
Yeah, right? Yeah, look who's talking. I know we're having like an intervention after this, but
yeah, exactly.
That was something that I did during my time at film school was I was working on anywhere from 3 to 10 projects in a 10-week span on top of being a student, a full-time student, and that,
it's like, it's both commendable, but also like,
No, I mean, like, I look back now and I'm like, man, I like kicked ass, but also that was the dumbest like thing. And I wish I had taken more time to be a human and, got more sleep and went out with my friends a lot more.
Yeah, be a college student.
Because now it's my last quarter and, some people will be like, oh, remember like that one time at Sand Arts Festival or whatever. And I'm like, no. I was on set that weekend, know? So a lot of learning lessons, but you really have to set those boundaries, I think, whether that's because, when you look at a project, the most important thing is to talk to whoever, whether they send you a script or you talk with a director directly and producers, see how much is going to be on your plate, what exactly they need. So there's no surprises, like suddenly like, oh, we need this insane location, last second. Is this something that you can handle with your current workload? And is this something you can really give your time to and manage? Mm-hmm. And then do you have time to be a human on top of that? Exactly. So it's all your individual
needs. The lowest
needs.
of priority.
Right. And I think there's nothing wrong with if someone pitches you a project saying, hey, can I look this over and get back to you in 48 hours? And I think that's something I really had to force myself to do my junior year was, if someone pitched me something, not immediately say yes. Yeah. It's, hey.
Because it's like, you feel like you got to grab the opportunity.
Right. You got to take the opportunity. And I finally hit that point where I was like, I don't have to take every opportunity. Yeah. I'd rather, and there was a point where I was just like, I'd rather work on a lot of things with people I really care about and friends I really care about than, just take a project for the sake of taking a project.
Yeah. Because you have to like the people as well.
Oh, 100%.
Like, you're working so it's not like a traditional 9 to 5. It's all the time, effectively.
Right, especially as students, we
Right.
don't get to go home at
Right.
9 and, turn our work phones off or whatever. It's,
Yeah, exactly.
I'll
Yeah.
wake up and my phone will be full of notifications of, hey, where's this? Can we do this? Can we meet later?
Yeah.
But I think learning those hard lessons and finally learning to say no to projects and really being choosy with what I do was the best decision I ever made, because
Yeah.
now I get to work with my favorite people every day on some of the coolest projects that, like, I'm probably super obnoxious, but I'm that producer now that's like, oh my God, did I tell you about my puppet film? Or like, I did it to you and Joe today.
You've done multiple puppet films.
I've done
little known secret.
They all prepared me for this one,
Yeah, exactly.
But even I think earlier I showed you and Joe, like, one of the animated projects I'm on, I'm like, we got a compositing test and look at it,
it's awesome. Yeah.
Because I'm super passionate about these projects and the people and what I do. So it's not work. I wake up and I get to talk to my favorite people and make awesome things. And this is what I've been waiting for 4 years. And I'm seriously in like one of the happiest places I've been in film school.
It reminds me of something my roommate senior year of high school. For those who don't know, I went to a boarding school for the last 2 years of school. And so we were in a dorm. And so I had a roommate. His name was Kobe. Shout out to Kobe. I'll never forget this. I was like in a really low place, but I was making stuff. And I was like, just like not in a good headspace. And he was like, well, you should like, he was basically like, well, you're doing what you want to do right now. And in a grand scale, not like in this moment you want to lay down and you want to lay down, but like you are achieving your dream in a way. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like it really reset my perspective. I don't think I've said that on the podcast, but it was really a powerful thing. Like even, of course, that was pre-SCAD. So, I mean, like if only I would have known what I would be doing. It is, I think, good to remember, like, we are filmmakers and we're making movies. And that's really, really cool. But in the same breath, it is work still.
No,
so that's
100%.
why you have to learn to say no, because I mean, blueberries there's going to be a time in which the whole world is on fire with blueberries. I mean, I guess we already had that happen with COVID.
Yeah.
So
couldn't control that though. For sure.
Yeah, exactly. But you still have to like recognize that it takes a lot of time and effort to do all those things, especially in film school. You're not getting paid to do those things.
Right.
So that balance is important. I'm also glad we're talking about this because I think this is applicable to every crew position, like not just producers, because I know that, or at least I've heard a lot, someone reach out to someone to be like an AD or something.
Yeah.
And I've heard people say like, oh, I don't want to say no because they're a good friend and it's a good project and they really need someone, but I'm just so packed full of projects that if I say yes, I'm not going to be able to give them my full time. As a director who's like looking for crew members, I would much rather someone tell me, I love it, I'm so sorry I can't do it, than 2 weeks in be like, I've realized I can't do it.
Right. No, 100%.
Which is, everyone has their reasons, like, and things change, things come up. So like, people's schedules can obviously grow and all that kind of stuff and evolve. But I think if you have that gut feeling of like, I just know I'm not going to be able to give my all, it's actually better for everybody to say no, because then they can go find someone who like, regardless of skill or whatever, can give at the time. And that is the one asset we cannot buy more of. So that's like the most important thing. So I think that's just good in general. Like if you can't, like, film takes a lot, even if you're just I shouldn't say but even if you're a below the line position, like a grip or someone on cam team or a script supervisor or whatever, there's still a lot of work that comes in with those people. And it's just better for all parties if you're upfront about that, or if you're upfront in saying yes, but like, yes, I can do it, but just so you know, I have all this stuff. Like just 2 days, like last night, I think we were having the conversation. Like, I know you have all these projects that are time sensitive because you're about to graduate. So like, how do we make our lives easier with blueberries?
Right.
I like, it's so important to just have the open communication, just be honest. Because if you can't do it, that's fine, but just tell me.
It's better in the long run, too, because there's no shame in that. And honestly, I respect people more who can come to me
100%.
and be like, hey, I can't do this. And it's something I try to apply in my own life and either say, you have to be honest and upfront of like, hey, I can't do this right now, but can we do this or find that compromise?
Yeah.
Or, hey, there was something recently about just setting those boundaries and admitting when you're wrong or you need to
Right.
like move something around, because I'd rather have people over communicate than,
Yeah.
you know,
Or
not.
like, yeah, both saying, "Hey, I'm busy," or like, "Hey, I'm going through a rough patch," and
Right.
so like
That's a big one.
that can affect my communication because this is good because I'm coming at this from a director's perspective, and so as a director, your whole job is to communicate to people, and so
Mm-hmm.
that will change how I communicate with someone if I know that they're going through something, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
that I need to not walk on eggshells, but like gentler with them than I am with
Right.
someone else. Like, yeah, I just my whole perspective is like, just tell me. So
Yeah.
then we can all like, then there's no misunderstandings, whatever
Mm-hmm.
it might be. That communication is so important. So
Yeah.
yeah, I totally agree. So whenever you're like approaching a project, or whenever someone comes to you with a project, obviously you have to like it and like the people, like we
Mm-hmm.
said. But what is the like foundation of a project that is needed for you to get hooked to it? Because again, you're at the point now where you can say no to things, which is a good position to be in. Like, we all want to
Mm-hmm.
get there.
Yeah.
But you're not just going to take anything.
Right.
Obviously, even if it was like, I could pitch you a project, and if you don't like it, you're not going to take it.
Mm-hmm.
You should, but no, I'm
Oh,
kidding.
is that a threat?
It's a little bit. No. But like, what does it need for you to dedicate all of this time and all of this effort to, especially when you're
Right.
not making any money?
No, 100%. And I think, I mean, for me personally, I work in a lot of mediums.
Yeah.
Whether that is narrative film, commercial, animation. For me personally, I like to know who I'm working with ahead of time, even if it's someone new to me. I like
Right.
to meet them and
Yeah.
see who they are and how they react to stressors or decisions.
Yeah.
Can they make decisions in quick time? Will they be able to keep an open mind? And if I say, hey, logistically we can't do this, but here's a compromise, how will they take that? So I like to get to know people ahead of time before working with them if I don't know them.
Yeah.
But also, what's the story? Who are they working with? Are there values there that I share? Because if there's a really great project being dangled in front of me, but maybe someone working on the project isn't the greatest, or maybe they're not treating their
Or
crew
they have the
right.
wrong intentions with it.
Right, or they
Yeah.
maybe don't have exactly the right intentions with it. I maybe in the past would have taken a project when I
Yeah.
was still saying yes to everything and building my portfolio, but I'm really happy that I found the ability to set those boundaries and find my voice and say no. And it's hard to say no, but
Yeah.
because you don't ever want to seem like mean or like, no, we're not working
Right.
together, whatever, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
So I really like to, at this point in my life, really stick to my values and who I am and what content do I want associated with me, and are they putting their people first?
I'm glad you point out the content associated with you, because word spreads.
Yes,
You know
it
what I mean? Like,
does.
in good and
Yeah.
bad ways. Like, if
Mhm.
people see that you're working on really great stuff, then they're like,
Yeah.
okay, well then you become an asset that can help them elevate their project
Mhm.
to a certain level, make it as good as they want to make it, which is of
Right.
course what we all want to do. But on the flip side of that, and this hasn't happened with you, but just word spreads. Like, if you're just making stuff and it's like kind of scammy, or just like makes your skin crawl a little bit, like,
Yeah.
well, then maybe she's not the right person for this job because
Mhm.
of all that other kind of stuff. Again, not that that hasn't happened with you. You wouldn't be sitting here if that had happened with you. I wouldn't have brought you to my home. But it is important to, like, the company you keep
Right.
certainly can show a lot about who you are as a
100%.
filmmaker.
And I think that's why it's important to keep, once you find your people, and sometimes that's
Yeah.
not always the easiest thing. I know
Right.
it wasn't easy for me for a while, but once I found my people
Yeah.
who shared those same values and who shared those same, for me personally, on sets, it's my people come first, and the crew.
Yeah.
How are you treating all your crew? It's
Yeah.
not just treat the producers and the director with respect. It's every single person, because they bring so much to the table and they have their own lives, and they have skills that, like, I couldn't bring to the table. That's why we
Right.
hired them, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And they deserve as much respect as a director, an executive producer, all that.
Yeah.
Even PAs, as much as, you know,
especially when
especially
like
PAs.
Yeah, especially like it's good to remind like we're all students.
Yeah.
Like yes, I'm the director of Blueberries, but like so I'm not flying in a private jet or need like the nicest car or whatever. Like we're all just people. We're all like we are on the same playing field, you know, at this stage. And again, we're not like if you are paying people at our age or at our stage, like it's probably not the union industry rate for like a tier 1 show or whatever, or the top tier show, but most likely you're not paying them. So like those comforts need to be extra taken care of. Like make sure the food is really, really good. And that the project
100%.
is something that they want to work on, that kind of stuff.
Right.
You know?
And even, you know, both on a student level, and I know we talked about this in the other podcast episode, with you, Joe, and I, talking about, you know, those values and those things that you set, even as, you know, working as students or independent, you know, filmmakers, and carrying them through. You know, setting those boundaries, and a challenge for me is, you know, I'm really trying to ingrain into myself as a student, saying no. What projects do I want to work on? What values do I need to work on a project? And not even just holding other people to that standard, but holding myself to that same standard.
Right.
So even when I work, you know, on the set I'm on now in town, on the feature, or in my career with the company that I'm going to work with in September, or, you know, every internship, every freelance gig, it's, you know, still bringing those values, because
even
if
on the big,
on the big things, because if I didn't start now, it would be much more difficult for me.
Oh yeah.
You know,
100%.
to stand up for myself and stand up for my people.
Yeah. And again, just the word spreads. Like those decisions that we make now, like, do have ripple effects. And I think it also can, like, I know that there are people who I reach out to about Blueberries and they're like, oh, Raegan's producer? Okay, I feel better. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like that's like, or they feel way worse. No.
Oh yeah, they're like, oh, gross now.
Yeah. But like you want people to associate your name with like good experiences, which is a duh thing to say, but it's like it's very, very true, because we've all worked on projects that the experience is terrible. Like the set experience is not good for whatever reason, not to point any fingers, but like things go wrong and you're not taken care of or whatever. And you're always going to remember that set for that. But I think people like on Blueberries, like my goal is I want people to come work on Blueberries and like tell other people like, oh, that was such a cool experience. You know, getting to go to the middle of nowhere, Mississippi and make something like that's important to me as a director and as a producer. Yeah.
It's the best feeling to hear from your crew that like they had fun and they felt taken care of. Yeah. And I like to do that on set. Even, you know, as a producer, I still like to be involved on set, and I usually step into like a UPM role. And even if that's noting like, hey, what's everyone's favorite like coffee order or piece of candy, and just having that on hand, or like, you know, it's going to be hot, bring popsicles. Because at the end of the day, things are always going to go wrong on set. But especially as a producer, you need to know how to handle those. But also my personal thing is, how do I make my crew happy? What's that one thing I can do on an especially rough day that we can predict that'll be a good pick-me-up and, you know, keep them good, keep them going.
Yeah, exactly. Especially since it is such long days and everything. Yeah. Yeah.
And for free as students.
Yeah, again, I keep going back to that. But as someone who has now worked on one-page job, I'm like, man, does that change the perspective?
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm working on SVU and like I'm getting paid, and I'm like, okay, well then you can do whatever, because you're paying me. So turns out being paid is important. Who would have thought?
You want to get paid?
I want to take everyone back, or I want to take everyone to the last week of the last on-ground quarter at SCAD, because that was a hell of a roller coaster for both of our film careers. Again, to catch everyone up to speed, we were in winter quarter at SCAD. The last week ended on March 12th, which was the day the earth stood still with COVID. Like that was the day it actually boiled over. Everything shut down. Obviously, we are now living a post-COVID, or during COVID world, I should say. So that was a crazy week, not even just because of that, the Sunday, we're talking about blueberries, by the way. This is my thesis film. Raegan is a producer, or was going to be my thesis film until COVID happened. And so that's what we're in town prepping for. Sunday, our DP got a hairline fracture in her neck.
Yeah.
And could no longer be our DP. So Joe, who is our studio audience today, went from being our BTS videographer to our gaffer to our DP in, I think, 72 hours.
You get a medal for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's great.
Thank you, Joe. And then Tuesday, the Mississippi State Department of Health shuts down every care facility in the state.
Right.
And we were going to film at my grandmother's assisted living facility.
Right.
So Tuesday, we find out that we lose our most important location and our hardest to find location.
Yeah.
And just, there's just so many things. Like, it was just crazy. And then again, like, come Wednesday and Thursday, we start realizing, like, oh, COVID is like a thing that's real and scary. I remember Professor Sadwith, my senior 2 professor, pulling up a COVID case counter on like the TV because my classmate Lucy was also going to film in Mexico during spring break. And we were having discussions about her with like, okay, if you get stuck out of the country, what are you going to do? Luckily, she didn't shoot because that would have been really bad. That was a roller coaster. And a lot of people, I feel like, would not have come back to make this just because that was just an insurmountable mountain almost. And now we're a year later, COVID is still happening. So we have to figure out how to make a project like during COVID. We're both vaccinated, just so everyone knows. But during COVID, and now we've got like Joe and Seth, shout out to Seth. 2 of our crew members are out in LA. We got to transport them. You and a car full of people are coming from Savannah. I was in New York. Like, now we've got Providence again, the assisted living facility, which is a miracle. You know, I feel like a lot of people would have said that sounds like too much. What do you think that week taught you? Because I think we had a new plan every like 3 hours, and that's not much of an exaggeration. Like, especially when it got to like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Well, Thursday was the day we canceled it. So like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because Wednesday, I think we had like the Come to Jesus meeting
oh my gosh.
at Hamilton Hall, which was a building at SCAD, which was like, this was our go, no go meeting. Are we going to do it?
Right.
And I remember vividly being at the front of the classroom and you had the New York Times COVID tracker up and you said, Mississippi just got its first case. And like the room went silent for a second.
My heart stopped, I think, in that moment, because that's, you know, when we talk about this, we bring up that memory a lot, but that is especially vivid of refreshing that New York Times page and suddenly the first red dot is on Mississippi.
Because it's like, it's made its way to Mississippi.
Right.
It's there now.
Yeah.
So again, having to make those decisions, and like, I mean, I was in my distribution class trying to figure out the Providence thing. You know, what do you think that was the biggest lesson that you learned as a producer on that project?
Yeah.
Or on like that time?
I think that time seriously is what shaped, like, this past year has been a huge year of growth and really teaching myself lessons and boundaries and to slow down and be choosy with projects. It wasn't a perfect overnight process. But I think, you know, as a filmmaker, especially as student filmmakers, you really have to remain open to being flexible and adaptable. But that was like the biggest test of remaining flexible and adaptable, because we tried our hardest, because we didn't know.
Idea. Yeah, exactly.
We didn't know how intense this was going to be.
Right.
Or to what scale it would be.
Exactly. For reference, in the email that I sent out to everyone Thursday morning, March 12th, that was the like Blueberries is postponed. In the email I said, we plan to shoot within the month. Because we thought it was going to be like a 2-week thing. Yeah.
And I think everyone had that, like, it'll be 2 weeks and then we'll, come back from it and we'll, 2 weeks spring break, whatever. And that was definitely not the case, obviously. But I think it was a huge learning lesson in being flexible and adaptable. But also in that time, I think the hardest thing we had to learn in that moment was just to let go.
Yeah.
And we did let go.
Right.
And then we let go. We decided that morning that we weren't going for the safety of our, cast and crew.
Right.
We weren't going to go to Mississippi. And then I did absolutely nothing for 6 months.
Same.
As I'm sure most of the world did, but
Right.
I did nothing. And it was terrifying, obviously. But it was the first break I had in a long time from making films. Because at that point, I physically could not do anything on any of my films because they were
all in limbo.
They were gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it taught me a lot about when to learn to let go.
Yeah.
And that no project is permanent.
Mm-hmm.
And that I needed that this was the first time in 3 years that I had stopped and taken time for myself. And it was that huge moment of, that was so unhealthy, looking back at the last 3 years. And that was when I had to have my own come to Jesus moment.
Yeah.
And be like, you can't keep doing this.
Right.
For the rest of your life. You know what I mean? In terms of like pushing yourself like this and not having those boundaries and not doing anything. So, and I think going into that, still learning how to say no and be picky with projects as everything opened back up a little bit in our world, and going back into projects and being back on set for the first time in the fall.
Which was kind of a crazy experience.
Crazy, but it was, it's been a lot of learning lessons. But I think if it weren't for that, I wouldn't be where I am right now. Mm-hmm. And I think
quite literally, you wouldn't be in Mississippi right now. I'm sorry, I got you off.
No, yeah. Seriously. And that's, if it weren't for those, those hard learning lessons in that week, I wouldn't be where I am right now. I wouldn't be pickier with my projects. I wouldn't be working with some of the best people I know. And I wouldn't have come full circle at this point from where I was at 9, wishing like, I wish every day I could wake up and make movies with my friends, and I'm doing that.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have that, that week of, I think if I'm gray in the next 6 months, it'll be, if I didn't have that hell week, I wouldn't have forced myself to reevaluate the way I approach my final year of film school.
So we've discussed why you started becoming a filmmaker with Puddle Duck. Shout out again to Puddle Duck. Working on every project under the sun, and now managing that and like keeping a little bit under wraps what you're saying yes and no to.
Right.
You graduate in 2 weeks.
Woohoo.
2 weeks from Friday. We're recording this on a Tuesday. When this comes out, you'll be graduated. So everyone say congratulations.
Congrats, future me. You did it.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully didn't screw it up in 2 weeks.
This is where I fall off the stage. We can laugh about this in 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. And this fall, you're starting a quite impressive job on the video team at Deloitte up in DC.
I am. Wear my Deloitte jacket.
Yeah, exactly. Deloitte merch and bio. I feel like our peers are all at like a transitional stage right now, from graduating to entering into the real world, quote unquote, and starting these jobs and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Whenever you like zoom out a little bit and get your head above water, which I hope you get a couple chances to do that.
Thank you.
What is the North Star that keeps you going? The thing that you're always striving for, the reason that you keep making things, because it is stressful and it is a lot of work and it can be unhealthy and like you lose sleep and all that kind of stuff. Why do you keep going? And that's why I didn't tell you the question before we started recording.
No, that was best that you didn't. That's a good one. But like a doozy.
It's my favorite question to ask people.
No, it's a fantastic question.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Keep that in. Don't cut that out.
So what keeps me going? I mean, from a young age, I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. And I didn't know if that would ever be possible just based off of where I was. And I knew if I did this, I had to like give my all into it. And I know now, like going into it, I get to work with incredibly talented individuals and I get to learn from them. And I didn't have that opportunity to learn growing up and talk to other filmmakers. And I think every day being able to get up and work with filmmakers and meet them, whether I've known them for my whole time here or whether I'm meeting them for the first time, it's always, my goal is to continue learning. And it's also I love being able to bring someone's vision to life through what I can do through logistics. And even if that's just like an Excel spreadsheet,
but it's a gorgeous Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, damn right it is. But like, if that, they have such an awesome dream, and if they have that passion behind it, that's contagious.
Right.
And it, at that point, once I sign on to a project, that's your baby. That's now my baby too.
Yeah,
and I'm going to do everything I can to fight tooth and nail to bring your vision to life however I can. And that being able to see their faces when things are coming together is the coolest, even if it's just like, hey, lock to this location. Like,
I mean, you
awesome.
saw me literally after I had that phone call locking that location. I like ran into the kitchen and was like, we did it.
That's a step closer to bringing it to life.
Yeah.
And then you get to see their face when they actually get to watch it for the first time.
Yeah.
And that's what I strive for. But rounding back to education, because I didn't get to grow up learning about film and knowing that this was a thing, and didn't learn that there were so many positions and jobs within the film industry. Even now as a senior in college, I'm still learning every day. But something that I want to do later on in life, and like, I don't have a plan most of the time for my own life because I just go with the flow.
Yeah.
And it's projects and people and, whatever. But something I'd really like to do down the line is take all that knowledge and take all that experience. And this is my own goal, and I don't know if it's silly. And like, Quinn, you can tell Quinn to cut a bit. But I want to eventually work in education or some sort of mentorship program.
Cut it, Quinn. No, I'm kidding.
I'd love to work in some sort of mentorship program for either kids or teens or something, and these kids that have these awesome stories.
Yeah.
Because I worked with fourth graders for a long time, and I've worked with kids, and I've got younger siblings and all, watching all of their friends, and kids have the coolest ideas.
Yeah.
And I remember being a kid and having all these ideas,
right.
but not knowing how to execute it or if it was a thing, or no one else has these silly ideas. Like, and, we talk about the next generation of filmmakers. Eventually our generation will be, the oldies, which is crazy to think. But I don't know. That's like what fuels my love for filmmaking too, is the idea that someday I'd love to be able to teach kids and mentor kids and give back and help the next generation of filmmakers.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I mean, I have no doubt that you'll be able to do that. I hope we can foster similar things through Tungsten, but also I know you'll achieve that on your own. Raegan, I'm so glad we get to release this episode.
We'll see. Don't call it yet.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank you for saying yes when I called you in December and pitched the idea of you working at Tungsten. It's been a lot of fun, and we've achieved some great stuff. And in a month, we'll be filming Blueberries, finally.
So excited.
Everything crossed. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I appreciate coming on the podcast. Everyone, thank you for watching or listening. If you listen to the audio only version, you should check out the video version on our YouTube channel. Links to that is in the description of this episode. Thank you to Joe, our first ever studio audience, for filming this. Let's hear it.
You're great, Joe.
I loved it. Woo!
I'm gonna keep you with every episode.
Woohoo!
Gotta do this every time.
Yeah, this is a real confidence booster as a host. New episodes come out every Monday at 9 a.m. June is Tungsten Month on the podcast. I had an episode where I interview Joe and Raegan, and we talk about what the hell is tungsten. And then episode with Joe, off-camera Joe, right now, and Quinn, the editor for the podcast, as well. So thank you for listening. Be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. All that stuff really helps. And if you haven't said this in a while, leave us a review on iTunes. That is actually a huge help. Raegan, thank you for being here.
Thanks for
And we'll catch you in the next one. Let's clap us out.
Woo! That's awesome!
See ya.